Hey everybody, good to be back with you with our CG commentaries. We were talking earlier,
Yeah.
The last time we filmed one of these was in February.
Yeah, it's a little bit, some stuff have gone on since then.
Yes, there have been a few things that have
If you
happened.
missed it.
Yes. So what I really want to know from you, Joe, to begin with is, tell me all the things that God is trying to teach us in 2020. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. There's a good...
It reads like an Old Testament book.
It really does. You guys should actually take a break and talk about what you've experienced and what you've learned from 2020. God never wastes a tough season, but
you know, it's funny though, usually when we ask people that question, what God's teaching you, there's usually like this pause of like, I'm not sure. And that has not been the case. Like everybody is like, oh, God has been speaking loudly through 2020. So, yeah.
That's funny. Well, we began a new series called on Philippians, the entire book. We're going to walk through it. Of course, it's going to be a brisk walk because I think we're only spending 6 weeks, and you could certainly spend an inordinate amount of time in the book of Philippians. So today we're kind of focusing on the first half of the first chapter, and in reality, we're talking about the difference between joy and happiness. And you know, when you think about that difference, what pops to your mind? What's the difference, Dr. Joe Paris, between joy and happiness?
Yeah, I think for me, when I think of happiness, it seems more of an emotion, and joy seems more of a disposition, of like this is a joyful spirit. Happiness is flighty. Happiness is temporary.
Happiness is a hard thing to find.
For sure.
Got
for
it.
sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Keep going. Keep going.
No, and so for me, like when I think about joy, it seems to be something that is more permanent. It's something that permeates, where happiness is here one minute, gone the next.
Well, obviously, we know that the fruit of the Spirit is love, followed by joy. Peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good.
I'm a singer.
You are.
So
undoubtedly.
But no, I think that's one of those things that you know, and I said it Sunday that, you know, if I punch you in the face, you will not be happy.
No.
If I write you a check for $10,000, you will be happy.
Yes.
So as the circumstance changes, so does that emotion.
Yeah.
But joy, being a fruit of the Spirit, is actually a state of being, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it more describes who you are rather than how you feel.
Okay.
Where happiness is, in this moment, this is how I feel, but you could still be a joyful person in a difficult situation. You may not be happy.
Right.
I mean, there's many situations in the New Testament where Paul, I'm sure, was not happy, but he was joyful.
Like when he writes the book of Philippians.
Yeah, like an example, the letter that we're reading right now. Yeah. Like he's probably not in a happy state, but he was choosing to be joyful.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of like he's a little bit giddy, and you know, we're gonna. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but he's a little bit giddy that they might kill him. He's like, oh, this is gonna be great.
I know, yeah. No, and that's the funny thing is, like, you know, in this situation, like if you choose to do this to me, you still can't rob me of my joy.
Right.
Like there's nothing you can do to me to rob me of my joy, because that's not
even if he's being, let's say, beaten to the place where he's crying.
Yeah.
Because of that situation or that circumstance creates sadness instead of happiness. It's possible that he would experience joy at the same time.
Yeah. And once again, I think he's choosing joy, but I also think that's who he is.
So joy is a choice, or how would you describe that?
I think so.
Okay.
I think once again, happiness is a lot of times determined by your situation, some things that are outside of your control. Joy is a choice that you can make. And so you and I have been in enough hospital rooms of people that are terminally ill, and they've had a joyful spirit.
Yeah, sometimes you see somebody who has no hope.
No, but I think we've seen people, and we walk out and we go, man, like that person did not expect that response. I thought that they would be, you know, terribly sad, and they were choosing joy in that moment.
So maybe this is something you could talk about in your group, and that would be, what are some ways in the circumstance of the pandemic, whether it be financial hardship or whatever, that you have experienced a sadness, and then were you able to maintain or choose your joy?
Yeah,
that would be a good question,
yeah,
wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, what are some
absolutely.
ways you experience sadness
Yeah.
in 2020 so far?
Yeah.
There probably should be some, or you probably should be able to find some.
Yeah, yeah.
And what were some things that created some really deep joy for you in that moment? Can you answer that question for you?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously 2020 has been a challenge, and there have been a lot of emotions that we've gone through. But through it, I've seen God redeem things. Our neighborhood started meeting together and praying every Tuesday night. We got closer to one another. We had lots more spiritual conversations with one another. Our family, I think, reevaluated the direction we were going with just the things that were consuming our time, because we had a lot more time on our hands. And so we started to go, you know what, maybe going back to normal isn't the best pathway.
Okay.
Would we have gotten there outside of the pandemic? Probably not, because we were just so caught up in the current of culture. We were just moving in that direction.
I thought you were going to say that you're sad because golf courses are more crowded, but joyful because you're out on the golf course.
Yeah, that's where I was leading to. So that's really where I was going. So,
if you knew him, you know how true that actually
very
is.
much so, yeah.
Philippians 1:3-5 says, I thank my God in all remembrance of you, always in every prayer of mine for you all, making my prayer with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. Written by a guy who's in prison. So he's counting his blessings, naming them one by one.
Yeah.
He's counting
Yeah.
his many blessings. How does that song go?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah. In a jail cell.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's counting his blessings.
Yeah.
And he recognizes the fact that I have Christian brothers and sisters to write this letter to outside of this prison cell is actually amazing. The fact that I can write, the fact that I have paper, the fact that that I know you're doing ministry outside the walls of this prison is enough to give me an internal joy.
Yeah. And even to the idea where, well, we're going to kill you. Man, I get to go see Christ. Like no matter what you do to Paul, you're not going to rob him of his joy, because you have no control over that.
Right,
That's his decision. That's his choice.
In what ways does knowing how the Bible ends build a sense of joy in your life?
For me, there is, rather than fear, there's hope.
Okay.
Rather than uncertainty, there's promises.
Okay.
And so you lean on these. And so once again, when my emotions want to take me in a direction, it's my faith that keeps me anchored. So for me, I've always thought about the illustration, when I'm on a roller coaster or a simulator, it is trying to tell me what to feel, but I'm reminding myself of the truth of I know what is true, that this is a roller coaster that's been tested. It's going to get me to the end. This simulator is only simulating life. It's not real life. I could step outside at any time and be back on solid ground.
It's not like he's quoting the Matrix here.
No, I'm not quoting the Matrix. But the idea of that I don't trust my feelings, I trust my faith. And I trust what God saved me. And so, man, it looks uncertain, but we know it's not uncertain.
So maybe the question here is kind of similar to the question a minute ago, but a little bit of a nuance, is what situation or what feelings threaten your joy?
Yeah.
In other words, maybe just share that. That's a time of kind of some authenticity with your group. You might find yourself going a little bit deeper as a group, because you can ask, what is it what feeling tends to threaten my joy? Whether it's that I feel like my kids are failing right now. I feel like that I don't have financial certainty.
Yeah, the job market.
What's the feeling that really threatens it for you? And maybe somebody in the group can then turn and say, hey, I get that. I've been there. Let me tell you what happened for me.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So one of the things, and once again, I still have a lot of life left to live, but one of the things that I've learned through being a Christian.
That was a really nice way of saying I'm old.
I was not saying that at all. But one of the things that I've realized being a Christian for 35 years now is that I don't worry about as much things because I've seen God be faithful through the years. And so what about you in your experience? How has your continuing to see God be faithful given you that confidence later on in life? And because sometimes I think for a new believer, I mean, you're kind of going, I haven't experienced this yet, but I've talked to some seasoned people and they have such a confidence, but they've got a pedigree of experiences where God was just continually there for them.
Yeah, you definitely kind of stack those up. Over time. I would say that I look back on places career-wise. There's a moment, kind of a pivotal moment in my career where I really thought everything was crumbling down. I thought I was no longer
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
in ministry, honestly.
Yeah.
I thought I was, getting to the point of going to call some friends and seeing where I could start over in a new career.
Yeah.
I've had experiences, health-wise, both myself and my wife, back surgery, all that kind of stuff was a challenge. And then just working through some therapy issues, some things that happened to me, just kind of working through that stuff, that I see how God has taken those things and He's actually redeemed them.
Yeah.
And therefore, even when I'm going through something that's negative, like one of those things, usually not that major even, but when I'm going through something, I can look to something that was even bigger or more devastating and saying, God was faithful in that. It's going to be easy for Him to be faithful in the fact that, we had a wrecked car and we've got to figure out how to provide for ourselves or replace that car.
Yeah, and I think even to borrow from you from the previous week about sharing your story, I think that could be a good thing for the group to share your stories, because I think it gives maybe somebody that doesn't have as much experience in faith to say, I'm going to borrow off your story. And the same God that was faithful to you is going to be faithful to me.
Yeah, and so once again, we're able to have that confidence, that anchor, that hope, and that joy as a result of hearing other stories. So I hope you'll be sharing those with your group. This is going to be another great opportunity for you to do that. It's going to be a fantastic study in the book of Philippians, and so we'll be back with you next week.